Good evening, welcome to ITV News. This is Friday night's calendar.
Yes, good evening, thanks for joining us. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour.
Do it for Bo, the mother of a 6-year-old girl who died from an aggressive cancer, says Britain needs to catch up when it comes to treatment.
There's such a massive hole in our lives and, people talk about grief, but what a travesty it'd be if in 40 years from now we're still in the same position where survivorship rates are still so ridiculously low.
Also tonight, sex education. A new study claims that 3% of students across Yorkshire are turning to illicit means to pay their way through university.
I worked out in my first year. I made roughly around £25,000. I almost feel sick of the idea of what I'm doing. It's kind of disgusting, but then on the other hand, the money which it brings in.
The word retirement scares me to death. And I do understand that it will stop eventually. I just wanted to be able to do it on my terms, after the better night.
Fighting on. After a stinging world title defeat, the Leeds Warrior tells Calendar he's not ready to give up his gloves.
And National Treasure. We're joined in the studio by Sheffield's man with the pram, John Burkill, fresh from his triumph at the Pride of Britain Awards. So first tonight, the mother of a little girl who died from a rare form of cancer has begun a campaign for more research and better treatment in this country. Bo
captured the hearts of people in her West Yorkshire community who raised hundreds of thousands of pounds to send her to America for treatment that's not available here. But she was never able to make the trip, and the money is now being used to help other youngsters.
Bo's mother, Shirley Hepworth, says parents shouldn't have to fight for the best treatment whilst dealing with a sick child. Katie Oscroft went to meet her in Liversedge.
Push the tube in, screw it in. It sometimes feels weird when you first put the tube in, but then you get used to it.
Bo had to get used to a great deal in her short life. When she died from a rare form of cancer aged just 6, it left her family and a community heartbroken.
She was amazing. And as a family, we're absolutely devastated. And there's such a massive hole in our lives. She was wonderful, and I knew she would have done wonderful things.
Shirley took Bo to Westminster to beg politicians to put more resources into researching rare childhood cancers.
I knew even when me and Bo went to Parliament, it was never ever going to, in the timescale, affect how the treatment that she received or her survivorship. It's still something that we're passionate about, because how ridiculous that our grandchildren would be in the same position and their grandchildren would be in the same position, if change doesn't happen and the investment's not made.
Airplane, the night sky.
Shirley had to raise money to take her little girl to America for treatment not available here, a trip Bo was never well enough to make. But her community rallied round. This cafe close to the family home formed a charity. Bikers from across the county are still raising money, inspired by a little girl.
We just felt something had to be done and the little girl needed to go there. If it hadn't been for Bo, there would be no group at all. And we had never ever heard of what Bo had or anything. But we found all that out afterwards.
The things that they were doing and going out of the way for us was so overwhelming, and I will never ever be able to convey how grateful we are.
The family's MP is also supporting Shirley's campaign for change.
I will keep pushing from a political perspective for more research. There's much more to be done, and the UK is lagging behind in that regard. So I will keep having that conversation in Westminster, and Bo's legacy lives on.
In a statement, the Department of Health said, "We've specifically allocated £40 million for research in this area, on top of £1 billion a year for wider health research." It went on, "We've invested in every suitable research application made, and the funding will continue to be available for further studies to develop new treatments and therapies." But Shirley Hepworth says much more needs to be done for families in the same position as she was.
What a travesty it'd be if in 40 years from now we're still in the same position where survivorship rates are still so ridiculously low. The treatment options are still so toxic. Change needs to happen.
Bye, everybody.
her hope now is that her little girl's legacy will mean help for other children. Katie Oscroft, ITV News.
Thank you to Shirley, Beau's mum, for talking to us. And our best wishes to you, of course. Next, detectives hunting the killers of a teenager in Leeds believe the prime suspects in the murder have fled abroad.
It's more than 6 months since 18-year-old Jamie Meir was attacked and stabbed to death in a taxi in the Armley area of the city. So far, no one has been brought to justice. Well, John Hill is with us in the studio. And John, new developments in this case.
No, that's right, Ian. It's perhaps worth just reminding ourselves what we know so far. It was actually March the 31st this year when this attack took place. 18-year-old Jamie Meir had been travelling in a taxi when he was stopped by men in another vehicle at the junction of Hall Lane and Brentwood Terrace in Armley. Now, Jamie was stabbed. A 16-year-old boy was also attacked, and the pair were taken to hospital. Now, sadly, Jamie died from his injuries a short time later. The other boy survived despite his wounds. Well, 3 weeks after the murder, police released these images, pictures of 4 men from Leeds they suspected of carrying out the murders. They've been named as 22-year-old Ranay Wilkes, Enam Nishat, Caleb Orr and Akade Jeffers. Now, they're all aged 20.
And the police think that they're no longer in the country.
Yes, that's the latest. Police have said today that all 4 are believed to have left the UK shortly after the murder, but before they'd been identified publicly as suspects. Now, West Yorkshire detectives have released these CCTV images of the men in Liverpool because they say their inquiries show that they'd initially travelled to the city before leaving the country. All 4 are wanted for murder and the attempted murder of the 16-year-old boy. Police say they're making extensive inquiries. They're working with the Crown Prosecution Service as well. Now, the senior investigating officer, that's Detective Chief Inspector Damien Roebuck, said Jamie's family remain completely heartbroken at his death in such sudden and violent circumstances. So clearly the work goes on. It's intensifying, if anything. They say the public are vital to this inquiry because these 4 men remain at large.
Yes, let's hope that someone out there knows something and can help. Thanks very much, John. Well, next to shocking claims that 3% of undergraduates across the Yorkshire region are turning to sex work to help pay their way through university.
According to one support group, the cost of living crisis, coupled with cuts to maintenance loans, is leaving the average student £600 out of pocket every month.
And it says that means an increasing number are turning to more risky ways to raise income. Catherine Walker spoke to one student who's selling explicit videos of himself.
I worked out in my first year. I made roughly around £25,000. You know, this actually was more than my teacher at the time.
David, whose name we've changed to protect his identity, is one of over 56,000 students across the UK turning to sex work. Alongside his studies, he sells explicit pictures and videos to his subscribers online. The money helps pay his student rent, which is almost £2,000 a month.
Every time I do pull out my phone to create content, I almost feel sick of the idea of what I'm doing. It's kind of disgusting, but then on the other hand, the money which it brings in, it's great. Pays my rent, gets me luxuries. It's the reason I live where I live, the reason I eat what I eat.
You seem quite conflicted about the work.
The idea that that's the level I have to stoop to, and yeah, I guess emotionally, I don't agree with what I'm doing, but I need to pay my bills.
A survey seen by ITV News shows that 3% of undergraduate students in Yorkshire do sex work to make money at university. A further 6% said they would turn to sex work to raise cash in a financial emergency. With bills expected to rise again this winter, the mental health charity Student Minds wants to see more support for students struggling with money.
We know that there's different reasons why students do participate in sex work. What's really important to us is that they're not stigmatised for doing this, that their safety is an absolute priority and that they're not dissuaded from looking for help and support where they may need it. For us, this is a symptom of the cost of living crisis, and we're really concerned that there may be some students who are participating in this who feel like they have to and don't feel like they have a choice.
I think more students are turning to sex work because of the lack of money there is for living costs. I think the maintenance loan, which is the money the government gives them to cover their living costs, simply hasn't kept up with inflation, and it was already at a point where it wasn't high enough. So students are looking at things like credit cards, they're doing gambling, and sex work comes into that as well. They're seeing it as a way to make money sometimes a way to make money fast to help them get by at the end of each month.
The Department of Education told ITV News they have made £276 million available for universities to help students who are struggling financially. They said they urge students who are worried about their circumstances to speak to their university. But until student finance reflects the cost of living, the concern is that more students like David will see sex work as their only option to pay the bills. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
You're watching Calendar. Thanks for being with us tonight. Still to come before 6:30. We'll be joined by Sheffield's pram man, John Burkill, after he picked up that well-deserved Pride of Britain award, and we'll hear some of his amazing poetry.
And what a difference a day makes. I love a compare and contrast. Yesterday's weather and today's weather, but it does get better again for the weekend, and I'll have all the detail a little later on.
Two men who caused the death of a Leeds grandmother in an attempted robbery have been jailed for manslaughter for 9 years. In March this year, 20-year-old Samuel Hanrahan and 18-year-old Jerry Hanrahan targeted the home of 64-year-old Kim Way on Millside Walk in Morley. The pair first called at the address asking if Mrs Way needed any work doing before returning armed with a screwdriver and smashing a window while demanding keys to a parked car on the driveway. Leeds Crown Court heard the mother of 6 collapsed from the shock, suffered a stroke and was rushed to hospital where she later died.
Now, the phone rings, you answer it, and the caller tries to sell you something. We've all had cold calls, haven't we? But certain types will soon be banned.
Well, it already applies to pensions and it will eventually cover all financial products and services. The government recently ended its consultation on it, part of its strategy to tackle scams. Lauren Hall reports.
They're the phone calls you're not expecting.
Chances are you've received calls from someone trying to sell you something. Perhaps they were offering you insurance or an investment opportunity. Well, those are the sorts of calls which will soon be banned. So if you do receive one, you'll know that the person on the other end of the line is trying to scam you.
The ban on certain types of cold calling is welcome news for many, especially those we spoke to in Rotherham.
They phone right early in the morning, don't they? You know, like 8 o'clock. We don't get up at 8 o'clock, us as grey-haired people, do we? So it's annoying.
Say to them, where have you got my number from? Your number's on a database, isn't it? Somewhere, and they're selling it. I hate it.
We broadly support the cold calling ban. However, we think the government could be doing a bit more in terms of other measures to ensure that other people are not defrauded.
The government insists it's doing all it can. But it's also facing questions about how this will affect businesses who rely on cold calling to reach new customers.
The proposed ban on cold calling, anyone is going to support the reason behind it. However, legitimate companies do use this as a really important method of selling their products and adding real benefit to consumers. So it has to be balanced, otherwise it is going to be kind of a sledgehammer to crash a walnut, really.
National Economic Crime Victim Care Unit, Terry speaking, how can I help?
With so many being targeted by scams, this team's now working with police forces across the Calendar region. They offer support and try to prevent people becoming victims again.
Economic crime is growing and it's up to 40% of crime that comes into the country. So it is something that we want to help prevent, and the group here, the team, they work relentlessly in doing that.
They're hoping the crackdown on cold calling will make a difference. But a lot of that depends on how and when it comes into force. Lauren Hall, ITV News.
Really do hate cold calling, don't you?
I know. I must stop doing it, mustn't I?
Yes. Times of sport now, and Sheffield Wednesday have got their man.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
So it's time to say good evening to Chris, who's with us in the studio, of course. And big news at Sheffield Wednesday with a new man in charge.
They have got a new man in charge, and
Miraculously, this is him. Danny Röhl is the name, and he's been the assistant manager at Bayern Munich and with the German national team in the past. But this is his first head coach's job, and it'll be an altogether different challenge. And challenge, well, that's the operative word. Wednesday are bottom of the championship and without a win all season. Well, Arif Ahmed has been to see Röhl and started by asking what appealed to him about taking the reins at Hillsborough.
For me, it's a big chance to be here, to develop something. Wednesday is a huge club, and I think this is more about take points. It's also for the future to have ambitions to more than just to fight in the relegation zone.
And there's a clear division between some sections of the fan base and the football club. How would you be able to try and bring those together again?
Yeah, I think if we are successful in the future, we will bring everybody on one page, and I'm convinced about the fans, and we need the fans, we need everybody here around this club.
What brand of football should fans expect of a Danny Röhl team?
Yeah, my football has some clear principles, and the first thing is play with intensity, play aggressive, playing forward.
Thanks very much for talking to us, Danny. Well, as you heard there, Danny's first game in charge will be out a week on Saturday against Watford.
Yeah, Vilcom and Danny, we wish him all the best. Rugby League now, and the Leeds Rhinos wheelchair team will contest their third consecutive grand final on Sunday as they take on the Wigan Warriors. The Rhinos are looking to get their hands on the trophy for the third time in their history. James Simpson has won 2 grand finals as a player and is now looking to pick up his first as head coach.
There's been times this year you do doubt yourself and you're like, am I doing the right thing? Is this right? Am I totally doing the wrong thing? And everyone's looking at me like I'm crazy, but it's all paid off, and I feel like making the Challenge Cup final, making the grand final, it is a nice stamp to say, no, you are doing it right, you know, you are going in the right direction. So winning it would be just kind of the massive seal of approval.
Now then, Chris, you've been to see the Leeds Warrior behind you, Josh Warrington.
I have, yeah.
How was he?
Yeah, he was all right. Yeah, better than you think after his defeat to Lee Wood 6 days ago. In fact, you wouldn't even know he's been in a fight. There was hardly a scratch on him. Now, Josh has vowed to fight on. He feels the referee robbed him of a third world title last Saturday and told me the word retirement scares him to death.
It just seemed to stagger him for a second. He's looking for that left hook. Josh Warrington opens up. This is a big attack from the former champion.
Every time I went back to the corner, I won't say I started celebrating, but I thought this is exactly how we planned it going.
It was all going to plan. Josh Warrington looking back to his best at the Sheffield Arena on Saturday night, winning round after round against Lee Wood and on course for a third world title. But then...
Big shot from Lee Wood, and suddenly has turned it all around. Oh my days!
I'm up at 4, I'm up at 5. OK, I'm still not facing him. 6, 7, I turn on 8, but as I turn, he's already waving it. I'm not saying that I wouldn't get knocked out the next round, because he might come out and caught me in the first 10 seconds and we won't be having this conversation. I've just been done. But you never know.
Do you feel you've been robbed of a third world title?
In a way, yeah. And people might say, well, you got knocked out. Well, I was up on my feet and I was well ahead in the scorecards. Chris, if I could sleep at night if I was getting beat. Didn't take any heavy punches throughout the fight, and again, Michael will have seen that. So for him to go on and to stop the fight from there, I do feel that I've been cut short a bit.
Josh has been a professional boxer for nearly 14 years. He's been one of the best featherweights of the modern era, winning 2 world titles. But Josh has now lost 3 of his last 5 fights, and there's some who've questioned whether now's the time to throw in the towel.
You've had a fantastic career. Not many fighters win 1 world title, let alone 2.
Mm-hmm.
You've still got all your faculties.
Yes.
Got a lovely family, Natasha and the kids. Isn't an argument to be made to say, I'm done now, I've done what I needed to do, and I can just enjoy the rest of my life?
My life has been made around boxing. You know, I've been boxing since I was a kid. The choices that I did when I was at school, the choices what I did when I were friends as a young man, the choices what I did as I started work as becoming a dental technician, that was all shaped around boxing. Even my wife has sacrificed her career. But obviously life is a long time, isn't it? So there's a big chapter to have when I call it a day.
Are you addicted to it, do you think?
Yeah, definitely am. And listen, the word retirement scares me to death. And I do understand that it will stop eventually. And I just wanted to be able to do it on my terms, after the better night.
Great to hear from Josh on calendar this evening, and it certainly doesn't sound like he's finished, does it?
Not at all, does it? No, I've got to be careful what I say now because I know Josh watches calendar as well, and you know, he's a big lad, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very candid with what he said.
He is. Josh feels he feels like he's got unfinished business. He wants a rematch against Lee Wood, and he wants to fulfil that ambition of fighting in America. So the desire still burns strong for him. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll tell you what, you don't want to get on the wrong side of his mother-in-law, Debbie, either.
Oh, really?
No, definitely
Well, I don't
not.
want to get on the wrong side of Josh either.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. The ITV Evening News continues here at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Charlene White.
Coming up, Israel gives evacuation orders to half of Gaza's population as the UN warns of a humanitarian disaster. Israel gave those in northern Gaza 24 hours to evacuate ahead of an expected ground offensive into the region. Here, the Metropolitan Police warn of a rise in anti-Semitic hate crime. And the FA face a backlash after deciding not to light up the Wembley Arch in Israel's colours. So do join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Well, it's time to catch up with the weather now. Good evening, Kerry.
Hi, yeah.
A little bit wet today.
It was certainly a wet start, a real northwest-southeast split across the region today. I think North Yorkshire had about 10 mils, but further south into parts of South Yorkshire and Derbyshire especially, there was, I think in places over 25, 30 mils, and that's about half a month's worth of rain. So a real big split north to south. And you can see this earlier on today. It was about 20 to 5 this afternoon, and we got a lovely stripy sky against the clock face there in Scarborough. A big thank you to Angie Holpin. And you can also see this in this wider shot, a lot of cloud, the stripes starting to come through, that colder, drier, clearer air starting to nudge its way in from the north and the west, and that weather front sinking southwards. So of course those southern and eastern parts of the region getting the wetter spells because we had the rain for longer. So yes, those clearer skies are going to come in, and it's going to be a little bit chilly tonight, but we've still got a bit of a breeze. But over the next few days, definitely looking at our first widespread frost, I think, of the autumn season. But as well as looking up, you've been looking down. We've got some nature shots.
Oh, look at that.
I've been saving them all up for a Friday. So this one was by Bill Tinsley. Absolutely gorgeous. So clear, that shot. A big thank you for sharing with us. Also a badger in South Yorkshire. A really big close-up of this beautiful specimen here. A big thank you to Stephen Abbott for this one. And we've got a grouse near Rosedale Abbey on the moors there. Big thank you to Leslie for sharing. And also this little cheeky robin at the Folly in Roundhay Park, so keep them coming. And of course it's we've only got 2 weekends for pumpkins, so I'm after pumpkins after the weekend if you've been picking the pumpkins in the patches Saturday and Sunday.
Don't say that too many times.
I won't.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure there's many of you who were among the millions watching last night's Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Awards on ITV1, celebrating amazing people who've shown courage, determination and grit for the benefit of others.
Yes, one of those winners was our very own John Birkill, Sheffield's man with a pram, who's raised more than £1 million for Macmillan cancer support by tramping up and down the streets, pushing his famous pram.
Well, it's fair to say he was one of the recipients who stole the show. And earlier, he came into the Calendar studio where we asked him what it was like to be crowned ITV Regional News Fundraiser of the Year.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I was dumbfounded when I knew it was me because, as I said before, everybody in there were winners. Everybody. There were no losers in there. They were all great fundraisers, great people.
We know you've raised over £1 million, which is incredible, but the thing that really is amazing about it is the fact you've never once asked anybody for any money.
Oh no, that bucket of mine, what's in the pram stays in the pram, and if people want to donate, they will do it. If they can't, they can't, so it's up to them entirely. I mean, I never ever dream of asking anybody for any money at all. No, that's in my mind, that I would not dream of that.
And you went up on stage, didn't you, to get your award. You saw Angela Rippon and you recognised her. What happened when you saw her?
Well, so I did see her when we were going in outside red carpet, and my pram at one sideline, and she came up to me and says, and I looked at her and I said, I know you, don't I? I couldn't think from when. She said, my first name is Angela. Oh, I said, Angela Rippon pretends to be a dancer.
And then once you were up on the stage, You read a poem, didn't you?
Yeah, I
And that
did.
brought the house down.
I did, you did, yeah. It was one I wrote many, many years ago called My City, which I brought with me.
Mm.
If you want to read it again, I will. I'll try.
Go
Because, as I say, it brought the house down and everyone was in tears. Sheffield, my city, that will always be the home to me, no matter where I go or whatever sights I will see. Whenever I return, church bells will peal as I come home to the city of steel. My city of Sheffield is simply the best. England's finest city, better than all the rest. Wherever in the world I will choose to roam, I'll always return to my city, my Sheffield, my home. I thought it was a thing to do, because that's what I think about Sheffield. And yeah, I think it's my city, my people.
We know, obviously, you've got this wonderful award, but that's not it, is it? That's not the end of this fundraising.
That's not the end of it. I'm not going to stop now, because I can't stop. I can't stop, because there's so many people out there that need our help, and they need Mike Mullen's help.
Well, John, you're 1 in a million, that's for sure. You really are.
Yeah.
And you've cheered us up coming into the studio tonight.
Well, it's a great pleasure to meet you both, it really is.
The pleasure is all ours.
I do watch Calendar News, so I know what's happening.
Good.
Hey, and what do you think of the outfit?
Look at this. What do you think?
I can see that.
This is in your honour.
So you know, one of Macmillan people. No problem at all. Wonderful to be here.
Thanks a lot,
very
John.
much,
Thank
John.
you.
You're very welcome.
Lovely man. Lovely man. We just need wigs now.
I thought you were wearing one. No, I shouldn't say that, should I really?
Should we go to Kerry now?
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello again. Yes, conditions clearing overnight tonight and through into the weekend. It wasn't very nice this morning, a lot of low cloud, damp, mild, misty and murky, but improving into the weekend to drier, clearer and colder conditions. Yes, plenty of sunshine by day, but some frost by night. So this is the high pressure. It's starting to nudge its way in from the west, initially giving us a north to northwesterly, and then parks over us into the early part of next week. So a lot of settled weather to come, but probably an increased risk, and yes, some chilly nights, but also some mist and fog during the mornings. Now, during the course of tonight, maybe 1 or 2 showers skirting western fringes, but becoming predominantly dry and clear as the night wears on. There's still a bit of a breeze, so nothing too chilly, but for all of us, a colder night, down into single figures, and in rural shelter into the low single figures, so a touch of ground frost certainly not out of the question. Light night in Leeds looking beautiful, the autumn leaves, the fungi and of course the late wildflowers. A big thank you to Sean for this shot. 7:31 and 6:12 ISN times as we head into Saturday. So always the risk of a little bit more cloud and a few showers down the Pennine spine, but for most of us tomorrow, dry, sunny, a little bit of fair weather cloud into the afternoon, bit of a breeze at the coast, and there will be a northwesterly across all parts. It's a light to moderate breeze, but it will peg back the feel of the temperatures that are already struggling because it's coming from that northerly quarter. So at best 12, maybe 13 Celsius, but feeling more like an 8 or 9 for many of us. As we head into Sunday, a crispy start, a frosty start, a beautiful dose of sunshine, setting the scene for the next few days.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
There you go, dry, clear, cold, wrap up, but my kind of weather for sure.
Say you pick a pumpkin again.
Pick a pumpkin.
There was something else you said.
Oh no, don't make me say that.
Time for us to wrap up now. We'll see you again for calendar on Monday at 6. For now,
Thanks
have a
for
good
watching.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.